Well, Vote, usually I ask you what it was like in the arena, but I was there.
Sucked.
Yeah, you were there. You guys got to leave a bit early. You did not have to do that presser, which was for sure the least vibey one of the season. A presser in which David Adelman said the Nuggets have to grow up and compete defensively. I'll take you guys into the pressers for the notes. You know, he felt like the second quarter, they did a lot of things. They came to play defensively. They moved the ball really well. And the other three, we just played a pickup game with them. He said, when you score 136 points and you don't win, that's concerning. Defensively, the main breakdown, he said he felt like the Rollers got behind really easily, and then they really kind of over-rotated from the corners, and it led to a lot of spray-out threes. He said the point of attack defensively just wasn't good enough tonight. And then everything that happened behind it allowed a lot of open threes in the corner, which I think we all saw. He did mention he was asked about not closing with Spencer Jones. And he said, yeah, I could have put Spencer out there for defense, but they had 139 points. Whoever the hell I put out there, they were scoring anyway, which I will say is probably his most Malone quote to date. He said, we have to get through screens. We have to be more physical. And again, that big quote, he said, we've got to grow up and we've got to compete defensively. I asked him if it was, he said they've had some professional wins this year. I asked him if this was an unprofessional loss. He wouldn't use that wording, but he did say lapse of focus multiple times. It just wasn't good enough from the Nuggets defensively. I think the final score and the box score certainly reflect that.
We also heard to me, real quick, Vote. I mean, those quotes from David Adelman to me, that sounds like Michael Malone.
Frustrated with his team that they couldn't get stops. I do understand, though, nobody was getting stopped, so we went with our offense. But that's kind of what it felt like was, well, whatever. Just put some spacing out there and let's try to close with the two-man game. But that's a scary spot to be in. Like, it didn't feel like the Nuggets should be in this spot given the guys that are on the team. They should be able to put together a roster or a lineup that can get stops in the clutch. Was not the case, though, tonight.
100%. And, when the Nuggets have played well this year, guys, they've done a good job protecting the ball. It's not a team that they don't turn their opponents over a lot. When they play well, they don't turn it over. Tonight, they turned it over 17 times for 30 points. That was a common theme in the presser. Yeah, obviously, Adelman wasn't thrilled with that. So this was by far the I think, sharpest edge that Adelman has brought to a post-game presser. I think in the past, he's been more interested in explaining losses, trying to keep everyone's chin up and about the operation as a whole. Tonight, he definitely seemed really frustrated up there, and, kind of hard to blame him. We also spoke with Jamal Murray, who was very frustrated up there. The first question I asked him was, from a process perspective as a group, what was the most frustrating aspect of this loss? And he sat on that one for a while, sighed a couple times, and said they just made shots. He kind of expanded, basically said he felt like the Nuggets played well offensively for the most part, right? The Nuggets were doing what they needed to do, but they just kept making shots, he said. He seemed a little less focused on why they kept making open shots than David Adelman. To him, it was, and Murray, we'll throw this line out there, they just kept making shots. Champagny, as he pointed out, came to play tonight, made some shots. Obviously, the shot making was a part of it, but as we talked about with those David Adelman notes, probably not a coincidence that they kept making shots considering how open they were from the corner.
By the way, the Nuggets had 16 threes. The Spurs had 17. It's just kind of, I get it's just the immediate aftermath.
Like
you haven't really
all of them
it
in like a 5-minute stretch
in the second quarter.
Yeah, maybe a little true, but it's just I can't blame a guy. It's the immediate aftermath. Sure. He didn't have any time to process this. I get it.
Sure. And I asked him why he was frustrated, and he certainly seemed frustrated. He probably could have answered that question for a long time, I think. He did talk about the turnovers, and he was asked specifically, were the turnovers what they were doing, what you were, or was it just you guys? And he kind of interrupted the question. He said, us. He said, Yoke had that turnover to Tim Hardaway. They come back, they score. He said, then Zeke turns it over, they score. He said, then I turned it over, and they scored. So he was really frustrated with the turnovers in this one. Obviously, a big theme in the pressers and a big theme in the loss. He summed that up by saying, I think if we just calm down and throw the ball at the basket, we win this game. But they couldn't even do that at times, he felt like. He was kind of asked about the clutch execution, or rather lack thereof. The Nuggets drop another game in the clutch tonight. And he said, we've been good at it for years. Like, I don't think you can just say we lost it, but he did concede that the execution just hasn't been there. He said it's all the small things, especially tonight, that led to them scoring 139 points and winning this game, or losing this game rather. He said we have to guard our guy. We just have to guard our guy. A lot of it was one-on-one, he said. It's not like we played a bad game. That's the problem. We were in the game. We were all playing well, playing fast. We were efficient, but they just kept making shots. I'll slightly disagree with that. I think in some aspects they certainly did play a poor game tonight, but I think you understand what he's trying to say. You score 136 points, you expect to win the game. A little frustrating when you give up 139 there. He said, look, mentally we are in a good spot, but this one hurts because we were making shots, and he felt like they should have won this game. He did say, look, it's about bringing energy now to this next game, putting this one behind us, bring energy. There's so many games in the NBA. You can't dwell on it. But again, he certainly seemed upset with this one. Cam Johnson was, I think, brief at the podium, also frustrated. I asked him the same question, and he said, just not finishing the game, man, just not finishing the game. He talked about the turnovers as well. And for Cam, he kind of owned his. He said, I had a couple of horrible ones. I had a horrible turnover where I just threw it away. Then I had another one off of a handoff. He said, those are just terrible. You can't have them. And it's haunting me a bit. He admitted, he was asked about his shot a lot. And he said, look, I'm more comfortable with it. He wasn't that interested in reveling in it. He said, I told you guys when I was missing them, it's a rhythm thing. I'll tell you while I'm making them, it's a rhythm thing. So he is feeling more comfortable out there, but Cam is not one to, I think, embrace the individual success when the team plays so poorly. He was sort of asked about the overzealous tagging and the way that they collapsed to deal with those rollers. He was asked, what's that instinct defensively? He said, well, you got to protect the rim. You see a big rolling to the rim. You don't want to just leave them there. And then they have De'Aaron Fox, who's a really good guard at kind of like holding the defense a little bit. And he said, when you have good guards like that are able to stay composed and don't let you speed them up, it's really, really tough. When asked about what it takes to make things harder for that guys like that, he said, you just got to bother the ball. Got to bother the ball handlers so that they don't see those passing lanes. The starters certainly didn't do a bunch of that tonight. He was asked about going back to Phoenix. He said, look, it's always fun playing there. I spent a lot of time there. Still a lot of people that I know well, but I'm just more focused on getting an NBA win. This is for sure, guys, the most frustrated they've seemed this year. So I think it's the most frustrated the fans feel. Look, the Kings loss was to some extent surprising and alarming. The Bulls loss, you probably expected them to win that game, given the Utah back-to-back overtime game. But for me, I think this is one of the most surprising losses I've seen from this group. They just let this group C slip right through their fingers. And Adelman won't say it. I will. That was an unprofessional loss from the Nuggets tonight.
No, because they were awake tonight, Vote. I think the other ones you got caught sleeping, and you're like, all right, human nature, whatever. Wish they didn't. They were awake tonight. They just got beat because they couldn't get stopped. So I'm with you. Very frustrating.
Yep.
Well, good stuff, brother.
All right, fellas. See you next time.
Enjoy your Friday.